to give a big thanks to CEDAR SBIA. As many of you know, SBIA is the essential conduit for getting critical drug and therapeutic biologics related information out to all of our stakeholders. And today would not be possible without Brenda Stoddard and her amazing team. So thank you, Captain. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Very excited that we have folks calling in from all over the world and really looking forward to a useful, engaging couple of days for all those who are joining us. As Brenda said, my name is Sean Kassim, and I'm the director of the Office of Study Integrity and Surveillance. Now, I'm not the keynote today, though. I'm introducing our keynote speaker, but I just did want to give you a couple of introductory thoughts. Again, really want to thank you for joining us today as we present some of the foundational aspects of how OSIS participates in the agency and CEDAR's bioresearch monitoring or BIMO programs. Our OSIS fundamentals are covered during this workshop. They reference some of the essential collaborations we have with many of the groups across CEDAR, like how we share CEDAR's BIMO oversight with the Office of Scientific Investigations. And we work closely with the Office of New Drugs, the Office of Clinical Pharmacology, the Office of Generic Drugs, and the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, and all the other centers with BIMO programs. And of course, work closely with our eyes and ears in the field, ORA, or the Office of Regulatory Affairs. In the future, we hope to have more outreach opportunities that really highlight those critical interactions that OSIS has with our partners in FDA. For today and tomorrow, though, we're really highlighting the 101 basics from the OSIS perspective. And also, as this workshop is speaking to OSIS foundational oversight, we don't spend much time discussing the pandemic or our extraordinary efforts to keep programs moving while travel was disrupted. The remote regulatory review has been discussed at other talks and will be in the future for sure, as it has been a critical tool during these trying times. Today and tomorrow, though, our discussion is really hoping to focus on describing, again, the foundational work of the office. And I hope the workshop provides you with some useful information. I also wanted to mention a note about tomorrow. We really wanted to provide some case studies, but also recognize that the virtual format makes interaction with potentially 200 plus participants a little complicated. We're hoping our approach provides some useful information for you, but also ask that you please be patient and understand that if there are some glitches, we will work through them. Even 2 years into adapting our approaches for the virtual world, we're still learning how we can communicate better with a lot of help from SBIA. Now, on with the workshop. Our keynote speaker today is my director, Dr. ShaAvhrée Buckman-Garner. Dr. Buckman-Garner is a critical member of the FDA senior leadership. As the director of the Office of Translational Sciences, OTS, her guidance and leadership and insight are really essential to a wide breadth of activities that are central to drug development and approval process. So please join me in reflecting on Dr. Buckman-Garner's thoughts as we get started on this OSIS workshop. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for the kind introduction. Today, I want to take a few minutes to share a bit about the Office of Translational Sciences, which is the parent or super office for the Office of Study Integrity and Surveillance. I want to talk a little bit about our efforts to help drive innovation. The Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, which is the center that we belong to, has a total staff of over 5,300 individuals, and we're distributed among the offices on this slide, all united with the mission to protect and promote public health. We work collaboratively with all of our colleagues throughout CEDAR, and we represent OTS. OTS was formed in 2016 with the intention of unifying the quantitative sciences. We started with a staff of about 300 and 2 offices, biostatistics and clinical pharmacology. And since that time, we have over doubled in size with the inclusion of the Office of Computational Science, Administrative Operations, and of course, our focus for today, the Office of Study Integrity and Surveillance. This slide shows the senior leadership team for OTS, which is a multidisciplinary group with a breadth of experience across the quantitative sciences. This is a fantastic and dynamic collaborative group of leaders. And I want to highlight, of course, the leadership of OSIS, Dr. Sean Kassim, who's the director, as well as Dr. Brian Folian, who's the deputy director for the organization. They have done a tremendous job with leading the organization and helping us grow. OTS is united in its mission, vision, and core values. Our mission is to empower a diverse, collaborative, and high-performing workforce to champion innovation and advance global human drug development. Our vision is to drive advancements in human health through scientific and regulatory innovation. And our core values include accountability, leadership. Again, you see the theme of creativity and innovation, collaboration, and communication. Unfortunately, I will not have the time to describe in detail the expansive efforts undertaken across OTS, but suffice it to say that key efforts to support drug development include the following: regulatory review capacity and expertise, which is a core functionality, inspectional capacity and expertise, which is largely subsumed within OSIS, regulatory science research, guidance and policy efforts, stakeholder engagement, as well as pilot programs and innovative approaches and tools. And then core across our offices are knowledge management efforts and communication. So as we move into the presentations for today's meeting, I want to make a few key points that are critical and central to our discussions. Bioanalysis is the foundation that supports sound drug development. And we know that clear standards and expectations are truly critical for reliable analytical results. We see that quality and integrity of data is paramount for everything that we engage in, and we have to be open to new approaches and innovation. We see that continued dialogue and that transfer of knowledge on science and technology between our stakeholders and our regulatory bodies is critical to help enhance application review as well as the inspection process. So I look forward to a robust set of presentations today as well as robust discussion. I want to thank you for your time and attention. And now I will introduce Dr. Tahseen Mirza, who's the Associate Director for Regulatory Affairs for OSIS, who will give an introduction, mission, and vision for OSIS. Thank you all.
Greeting, folks. My name is Tahseen Mirza. I serve as the Associate Director for Regulatory Affairs in the Office of Study Integrity and Surveillance, or OSIS. Please note that this presentation reflects the views of this author. It should not be construed to represent FDA's views or policies. In the next few minutes, I would like to explain the mission, vision of OSIS and give you a broader picture of the 3 compliance programs or CPs that fall under its purview. This current session will be followed by 3 dedicated sessions to each one of our compliance programs. Tomorrow, that is on day 2, there will be a reinforcement of learning through specific case studies representing each one of our programs. This presentation will go over the organization structure, roles and responsibilities, and the 4 steps OSIS follows in order to perform our core mission by following 4 steps: select, inspect, report, and support. OSIS selects sites for inspection, inspects study conduct and data reliability, reports on inspections through Establishment Inspection Reports or EIRs, and finally supports stakeholders with recommendations and evaluations. Our stakeholders being the various review divisions within CDER. OSIS resides under US FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, or CDER. Under CDER, there are several super offices. OSIS is part of the Super Office of Translation Sciences, Office of Translation Sciences, that is. And OSIS has an immediate office to support and oversee the operation of two divisions, which are Division of New Drugs Study Integrity, DNDSI, and Division of Generic Study Integrity, or DGDSI. OSIS's vision is to improve the public health by protecting study subjects and promoting properly conducted studies. And OSIS's mission is to promote the public health by ensuring the welfare of study subjects and by verifying the quality, study integrity, and regulatory compliance of bioavailability, bioequivalence, or BABE, nonclinical, GLP, and animal rule, AR, studies. Please remember the three major types of studies that are under the purview of OSIS from this slide, which are BABE. Under BABE, both analytical and clinical portions. Number 2, non-clinical GLP, and number 3, animal rule studies. OSIS supports CDER FDA's mission by serving as one of the last sets of eyes for authenticating data and to provide assurance that the data supporting regulatory decisions are reliable. It does so by following 4 distinct steps as mentioned before: select, inspect, report, and support. The rest of this presentation describes each of these steps. The first core function or step in site evaluations is select. OSIS selects sites that conduct pharmacokinetic, PK, bioavailability, bioequivalence, BABE, good lab practice, GLP, and animal rule, AR studies. It does so for doing what? To perform study-directed and comprehensive surveillance inspections of sites. The keyword is study-directed. The firm must submit a study in a drug application for OSIS to select a site for an inspection. OSIS uses a risk-based site selection process. Sites are prioritized for inspection based on several criteria that may include time since last inspection, outcome of past inspections and corrective actions taken, number of pending applications, and dates of study conduct in the pending applications compared to those reviewed in previous inspections. Based on risk assessment, the inspector in charge of the inspection may choose to audit parts of several studies as opposed to deeper evaluation of fewer studies. When issues are identified, a determination is made if it is isolated or a systemic issue affecting multiple studies. This allows OSIS to better assess the overall performance of the site. The great majority, more than 80%, of the site assessments submitted to OSIS for inspection are involved in ANDA studies. The next category is NDAs and then BLAs. That brings us to the next step in the process after site selection. It is to inspect. Inspection of a site is conducted in order to ensure the quality and integrity of studies submitted in drug applications. OSIS assigns and conducts inspections in collaboration with the Office of Regulatory Affairs. Additionally, OSIS is responsible for investigating allegations and complaints of regulatory and non-compliance. OSIS relies on compliance programs, or CPs in short, to serve as a guide for conducting activities to evaluate industry compliance with FD&C Act and other applicable laws. Compliance programs provide a set of instructions to FDA personnel for conducting inspections. The CPs under the purview of OSIS are in vivo BABE studies, the clinical portion, in vivo BABE studies, the analytical portion, inspection of non-clinical labs conducting animals rule-specific studies, and finally, the good lab practice non-clinical. This workshop will provide an in-depth view of each of the compliance programs with specific cases on day 2. The scope of an OSIS inspection depends on the compliance program involved. Some of the major elements are provided on this slide, which include facilities and site operations, drug product and subject sample accountability, which includes storage, handling, and processing, reserve samples, SOPs, protocols and protocol deviations, training records, method validations and sample analysis, method performance, audit trails and data security, instrument calibration and maintenance, documentation, AE reporting, monitor reports, and conducts inspections in collaboration with the Office of Regulatory Affairs. Additionally, OSIS is responsible for investigating allegations and complaints of regulatory and non-compliance. OSIS relies on compliance programs, or CPs in short, to serve as a guide for conducting activities to evaluate industry compliance with FD&C Act and other applicable laws. Compliance programs provide a set of instructions to FDA personnel for conducting inspections. The CPs under the purview of OSIS are in vivo BABE studies, the clinical portion, in vivo BABE studies, the analytical portion, inspection of non-clinical labs conducting animals rule-specific studies, and finally, the good lab practice non-clinical. This workshop will provide an in-depth view of each of the compliance programs with specific cases on day 2. The scope of an OSIS inspection depends on the compliance program involved. Some of the major elements are provided on this slide, which include facilities and site operations, drug product and subject sample accountability, which includes storage, handling, and processing, reserve samples, SOPs, protocols and protocol deviations, training records, method validations and sample analysis, method performance, audit trails and data security, instrument calibration and maintenance, documentation, AE reporting, monitor reports, and IRB/IEC oversight, specifically in case of clinical inspections. Study data integrity is the cornerstone of FDA's ability to protect the public health. It's a part of OSIS's core mission, and it's emphasized in the name itself, Office of Study Integrity and Surveillance, Study Integrity. Data integrity provides assurance that the data being audited is complete, consistent, and accurate over its life cycles, exhibits, discussion items, and firm's written response to Form FDA 483 if applicable. The final classification of NAI, VAI, and OAI is also given at this point. The final and the last step in the process after EIR and EIR report review writing is support. Support is a critical step in the process. In this final step, after thoroughly reviewing and evaluating the inspectional findings, OSIS provides recommendations to the appropriate CEDAR division about study integrity and quality. This information is one of the key pieces of information CEDAR uses in making a regulatory and approval decision for a drug application. OSIS may consult and collaborate with other offices, such as Office of Scientific Investigation, OSI, or regulatory actions and enforcement. OSIS also collaborates with international regulatory agencies by sharing data and conducting joint inspections. Here is a summary of what OSIS does. Assigns and conducts inspections in collaborations with Office of Regulatory Affairs to ensure studies submitted to FDA were conducted properly and data are reliable. Writes and reviews establishment inspection reports and determine regulatory and scientific impact. Makes recommendations to CEDAR review divisions to support regulatory review and approval decisions. Makes surveillance evaluations of regulated entities conducting BA, BE, and GLP studies, and investigates allegations and complaints of regulatory non-compliance. In conclusion, OSIS applies multi-pronged approaches to ensure reliability of data submitted to the FDA as part of bioavailability, bioequivalence, non-clinical GLP, and animal rule studies in collaboration with the Office of Regulatory Affairs and the Office of Scientific Investigations. Please type your comments or queries in the chat box. I will address them during the Q&A at the end of the first session. However, I have a couple of course questions for you. There are two questions for this presentation. Question number 1, which of the following inspections are covered under OSIS's purview? A, inspection of facilities that conduct in vivo BABE studies, clinical portion. B, inspection of facilities that conduct in vivo BABE studies, the analytical portion. Inspection of non-clinical labs conducting animal rule specific studies. D, all of the above. And E, A and B only. Question number 2, compliance programs serve as a guide for conducting activities to evaluate industry compliance with FD&C Act and other applicable laws. The potential answers are A, yes, or B, no. The correct answer to question number 1 is D, all of the above. And the answer to question number 2 is A, yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Nora Lim from SBIA, and I will be your host for today's workshop sessions. It is my pleasure to introduce our presenters for our first session, which will provide an overview of good laboratory practice, or GLP, regulations and compliance programs. Our first presentation, GLP 101, by Dr. Zhou Chen, will briefly go over the regulations and established standards for the conduct and reporting of non-clinical laboratory studies and are intended to assure the quality and integrity of safety data submitted to FDA. Dr. Chen is the team lead for the GLP team in the Division of New Drug Study Integrity in OSIS. He joined FDA CDER in 1998 and has experience working as a pharmacology toxicology reviewer in CDER's Office of New Drugs and performing GLP and animal rule study inspections. The second presentation by Erin McDowell will provide an overview of the GLP Nonclinical Laboratories Compliance Program, which is a part of the FDA BIMO program. Erin McDowell is a biologist also within the Division of New Drug Study Integrity in OSIS. The next presentations that follow will be by Dr. Lynda Lanning to discuss the specifics of the animal rule and provide updates regarding two recently published Q&A guidances, Pathology Peer Review and Whole Slide Imaging. Dr. Lanning is a member of the GLP team in OSIS, and she conducts and evaluates inspections of non-clinical studies submitted in support of pharmaceutical development. Now please join me in welcoming our first presenter, Dr. Chen.
Hi, good morning. I'm Zhou Chen, GLP team lead in CDER's OSIS, Division of New Drug Study Integrity. I'm very glad today to talk with you about FDA's Good Laboratory Practice Regulations. Disclaimer. The opinions and the information in this presentation are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the views and our policy of the FDA. Learning objectives. In this presentation, I will try to describe the history and the scope of GLP regulations, the role of OSIS with GLP, and the FDA's GLP program. Outline of this presentation. GLP regulations, role of OSIS with GLP, and the GLP inspection program. Okay. First, let's talk about GLP regulations. That's 21 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 58. GLP is a quality system used for non-clinical safety studies to support applications for products regulated by FDA. GLP regulations are used to assure non-clinical safety studies are appropriately designed, conducted, and documented to generate meaningful and reliable data. GLP assures quality and the integrity of the data, facilitates study reconstruction, and provides overall accountability. In CDER, new compounds are first tested for safety through non-clinical safety studies. Before GLP regulations were established, FDA only performed limited full-course inspections for complaints or at a review division's request. There were no published regulations to guide non-clinical studies and FDA inspections, and there were no systemic evaluations of all firms or labs conducting non-clinical safety studies. In early 1970s, FDA was aware of many cases of poor laboratory practice all over the United States. FDA performed an in-depth investigation on 40 toxicology labs and found many fraudulent activities and poor lab practice, including experiments poorly conceived, carelessly executed, inaccurately analyzed and reported. Also, inadequate training and qualification of study personnel and failure to verify accuracy and completeness of data in study reports. All these issues were presented to Congress. So after a series of Congress hearings, Congress increased the FDA budget to ensure the quality and integrity of data submitted to support FDA-regulated products. And in 1977, FDA established the Bioresearch Monitoring Program. This is a comprehensive program of on-site inspections and data audits Congress also proposed and enacted the Good Laboratory Practice Regulations as part of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. The proposed GLP regulations were published in November 1976 and finalized in December 1978. It is 21 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 38. Scope of GLP regulations. This is on the very first part of the Part 38 regulations. Here we should pay attention to three things: non-clinical, quality integrity, and safety data. I just mentioned that a GLP is the quality system used for non-clinical safety studies. And here below are the items covered by GLP regulations, including human drugs, biological products, medical device for human use, and veterinary drugs. GLP regulations are for non-clinical safety studies, so the following studies are not under the GLP scope. Like we have human clinical studies, this is not a non-clinical studies. And the basic research, like non-clinical pharmacology studies for mechanisms of action and efficacy, these are not for safety evaluation. Okay. Also, discovery toxicology studies, this is for exploratory evaluation. It's not real safety evaluation. And the non-clinical PK evaluation, that is not a part of a GLP study, and the bioanalysis of samples for clinical trials. In CDER submissions, many non-clinical studies were conducted in foreign countries, and many foreign studies stated that they followed OECD GLP principles. Okay. OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. OECD GLP was developed in 1978 and revised in 1997. So FDA's GLP provided a basis for OECD GLP, and the expert working group was led by US FDA. The primary objective of OECD GLP is very similar to FDA's GLP. That is, to ensure the generation of high quality and reliable test data related to safety of industrial chemical substances. FDA has Mutual Acceptance of Data Agreement, that is MAD, with many OECD countries. So generally, if a study is conducted in an OECD member country and follow OECD GLP principles, the study will be accepted for review. Some OECD countries issue GLP certificate after their inspections. FDA does not issue the certificate, and the studies conducted at a certified lab is not a guarantee of good quality. Next one is the role of OSIS with GLP. So the work of OSIS scientists is to support CDER OND and OGD pharmacology toxicology review process. Okay. OND is the Office of New Drugs, and OGD is the Office of Generic Drugs. We work very hard to verify data quality and integrity of pivotal studies and address CDER PharmTox reviewers' concerns. The work of OSIS reviewers covers surveillance oversight to assess labs' general ability to conduct GLP safety studies, and a complaint investigation for study data falsification and the lack of GLP compliance. Specifically, the work of OSIS reviewers includes preparation of inspection assignments that can be requested by CDER review divisions or selected by us based on the firm's previous inspection history and the studies submitted to CDER. We may also participate in some GLP inspections to provide our scientific expertise, usually for important inspections like directed forecast inspections. The work also includes evaluation of GLP inspection results for data reliability and follow-up actions like EIR review, response evaluation, and post-inspection correspondence. Next one is FDA's GRP inspection program. At FDA, we perform GRP inspections to verify data quality and the integrity of non-clinical GRP studies. These studies are usually pivotal and used to protect human safety in clinical studies. We want to make sure the data are reliable to support review decisions in IND, NDA, ANDA, and BLA applications. Because of limited personnel and limited resources, FDA cannot cover all firms and audit all studies at the same time. So there must be a priority in our inspection planning. We put animal rule studies first because animal rule efficacy studies can directly lead to drug approval. So Dr. Lynda Lanning from our team will talk about animal rule inspections later today. The second one is directed inspections because they are related to certain issues. The last one is surveillance inspections. There are two kinds of inspections from GRP compliance program: directed inspections and surveillance inspections. Directed inspections are conducted to address review division's concerns about data integrity and study conduct, and to confirm GRP compliance. The inspections usually are requested by senior review divisions and are assigned for a purpose like to confirm data integrity, reliability of pivotal studies. Directed inspections are also conducted as a follow-up to confirm corrective actions. Some directed inspections are requested by OECD countries. Directed inspections are also conducted for complaint evaluation, complaint follow-up, like data falsification, lack of GRP compliance. OSIS reviewers perform many directed inspections. The number of directed inspections is not predetermined. We usually have about 10 directed inspections for each year. Surveillance inspections are routinely conducted, usually every 2 to 3 years, and are usually conducted by FDA ORA investigators. Okay, ORA is the Office of Regulatory Affairs. So, in surveillance inspections, the firm's GRP compliance with facility operation and study conduct is evaluated. The inspection includes facility overview and data audit from recently finished studies. The number of facilities for surveillance inspection is decided at the beginning of each fiscal year. Usually, it's a little more than 20 surveillance inspections per year. We inspect both domestic facilities and foreign sites. In surveillance inspections, we will help ORA investigators select the studies from CDER database and from the firm's master schedule. At the start of the inspection, we usually have an opening meeting with the firm's management and request organization chart to determine responsibility of the staff, floor plan for facility tour, master schedule for study selection, and to check workload of the study director and the firm's expertise, SOP index for SOP existence, availability, and update, equipment index and maintenance calibration log to check equipment maintenance calibration records, staff training files to see if they are GRP, if they have GRP and other training as scheduled, and pest control records. An inspection will include a facility tour and data auditing. The lab staff will be interviewed. The study record will be reviewed, including study-specific records, specific documentation and data, facility and equipment records, SOPs, training records. inspection usually take about 5 days, but it can be more than 5 days based on location, studies, and observations. Here I listed GLP inspection areas. From this list, you can tell GLP inspections cover many areas. My coworker Erin will cover this in her presentation with GLP compliance program. At the end of GLP inspection, there is a closeout meeting with the firm's management. If no deficiency are found, no Form FDA 43, that is inspection observations, will be issued. If deficiency are found during the inspection, Form FDA 43 will be given to the management. Also, some findings can be corrected during the inspection, but these findings will still be listed on Form FDA 43. After FDA GLP inspections, if we participate in the inspection, we will write our portion of the establishment inspection report. It is called EIR. So FDA ORA investigators will prepare an EIR and submit it to us for review. We will write a review of the EIR, evaluate if the study data are reliable, and provide our recommendations to CDER review divisions. In each EIR review, we will make a decision for final inspection classification. Okay. Here we have NAI, no action indicated, that is, no objectionable conditions or practice was found during the inspection. And VAI, voluntary action indicated, that is, objectionable conditions or practice were found, but the agency is not prepared to take or recommend any administrative or regulatory action. The last one is OAI, official action indicated. That means regulatory and administrative actions will be recommended. For OAI case, we need to discuss with the Office of Scientific Investigations Compliance Enforcement Branch for a final decision. In summary, valid non-clinical safety data are essential to the safety assessment for clinical trials. GLP regulations provide a framework to ensure the quality and the integrity of data from non-clinical studies. OSIS reviewers work to provide assurance that the data supporting regulatory decisions are reliable. Here I have two challenging questions for you. The first one is which of the following is under the scope of GLP regulations? Okay. We have for non-clinical PK studies, human clinical studies, non-clinical toxicology studies, and pharmacology studies for efficacy and mechanism. Okay. I will give you a few seconds to think about the correct answer, and I'll come back later. Okay, I have you get the correct answer. The correct answer is C, non-clinical toxicology studies, because this one is a non-clinical safety studies. Question 2. Which of the following statement is not true regarding OSIS scientists' work with GLP? Okay, here we have one already. OSIS GLP inspections are performed in US only, and OSIS scientists perform GLP inspections. OSIS scientists review inspection reports, and OSIS scientists prepare inspection assignments. Okay, I will give you a few seconds to think about the correct answer. We'll come back later. Okay, I hope you get the correct answer. The correct answer is D, because OSIS GLP inspections are performed not only in US, but also in foreign countries. This closing thought. Remember, the GLP is a quality system that ensures the non-clinical safety studies are appropriately designed, conducted, and documented to generate reliable data. Okay, that's all for my presentation. And the next, Erin will present GLP compliance program. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that introduction. Welcome. I am Erin McDowell, a biologist in CDER Office of Study Integrity and Surveillance. Today, I'm here to talk about the Good Laboratory Practice Compliance Program 7348.808. This presentation reflects the views of the authors. It should not be construed to represent FDA's views or policies. My presentation will focus on GLP inspections. So after this inspection, I hope you'll know FDA BIMO compliance programs and the elements included in the GLP inspections. FDA's compliance programs cover many areas and have evolved over the years. For example, the newest version of the Good Laboratory Practice Compliance Program was issued in May 2018. The previous version was from February of 2001. The compliance programs provide instructions to FDA ORA and center staff for conducting inspections and other compliance activities. FDA's compliance programs are organized by the following program areas: biologics, research monitoring, devices and radiological health, drugs, food and cosmetics, and veterinary medicine. The Good Laboratory Practice Compliance Program is under the BIMO compliance program. As Zhou mentioned in his presentation, in 1977, Congress increased FDA budget for activities related to data quality and integrity in support of FDA-regulated products. FDA received appropriated funds, which were used to establish the BIMO program, overseeing non-clinical and clinical research for FDA-related products. It is a comprehensive program of on-site inspections, data audits, designed to monitor all aspects of the conduct and reporting of FDA-regulated research. BIMO covers good clinical practice, good laboratory practice, and bioequivalence. And there are many more compliance programs that provide background and instructions to ORA and center investigators for conducting inspections and other compliance activities. For non-clinical laboratories, we have 3 compliance programs. 7348.8007 is for animal rule study inspections, not under good laboratory practice, but covered under the BIMO. And our office participates in these inspections. Dr. Lynda Lanning will talk about this later today. 7348.808 is the Good Laboratory Practice Compliance Program. There is another one that is for Environmental Protection Agency studies, which is 7348.808A, but we will not be covering that today. I will only focus on the GLP compliance program 7348.808. GLP, which provides specific procedures and internal guidance to field and center staff. Compliance programs can be found using this link. The laboratory practice is a quality system for non-clinical studies. FDA uses the non-clinical study data to answer questions regarding the toxicity profile of the test article, the observed no adverse effect dose level in the test system, the risks associated with clinical studies, the potential teratogenic and carcinogenic, as well as other adverse effects, and the level of use that can be approved. The importance of non-clinical safety studies to FDA's public health decisions demands that they be conducted according to scientifically sound protocol and with meticulous attention to quality. FDA relies on documented adherence to good laboratory practice requirements in judging the acceptability of safety data submitted in support of research and or marketing permits. FDA has implemented this program of regular inspections and data audits to monitor laboratory compliance with the GLP requirements. The compliance program has several sections, including background, implementation, inspectional, analytical, regulatory, administrative, references, program contacts, and headquarter responsibilities. This discussion today will focus on inspections. The objectives of the Good Laboratory Practice Compliance Program is to verify the quality and integrity of data submitted in a research or marketing application, to inspect periodically non-clinical laboratories conducting safety studies that are intended to support applications for research or marketing of regulated products, and to audit safety studies and determine the degree of compliance with the Good Laboratory Practice regulations. The compliance program includes two types of GLP inspections: surveillance inspections, which are conducted routinely about every 2 years to determine the lab's compliance with Good Laboratory Practice regulations. These include a facility inspection and audits of ongoing or recently completed studies. The other type of inspection is a directed inspection, and it is assigned to achieve a specific purpose, such as verifying the reliability, integrity, and compliance of critical safety studies being reviewed in support of pending applications, investigating issues involving potentially unreliable safety data and or volatile conditions brought to FDA's attention, re-inspecting laboratories previously classified, official action indicated, which is usually within 6 months after the firm receives and responds to a warning letter, verifying the results from third-party audits or sponsor audits submitted to FDA for consideration and determining whether to accept or reject questionable or suspect studies. And sometimes OECD countries ask us to audit study data for them. Our office usually goes on these directed inspections with ORA investigators. GLP studies audited in GLP inspections. For directed inspections, the studies are usually already identified in the assignment memos. They are requested by review divisions. For surveillance inspections, we will audit studies conducted for FDA submissions. Usually we select studies initiated and finalized after the last FDA GLP inspection. Studies include the full scope of laboratory operations. They could be complicated studies like chronic toxicity studies or developmental toxicity studies, or studies with different animal species, and usually there are different study directors. These are the areas listed in the compliance program and are covered within the GLP inspection. General instructions, areas of expertise, organization, personnel, quality assurance unit, facilities, equipment, testing facility operations, reagents and solutions, animal care, test and control articles, protocol and conduct of non-clinical laboratory study, records, and reports. For the inspection plan, on the first day of inspection, there will be an opening meeting. We explain the purpose and scope of the inspection, and the firm will also give an introduction and explain the changes that they have had from the last FDA GLP inspection. These could include any facility changes or leadership changes or construction changes, computer validation system changes. And we will request several documents like the organizational chart, master schedule, SOP index, floor plan, and study materials. The objective here is to ensure the investigator and site staff have clear communication and expectations. During the inspection, we will follow the compliance program to conduct the inspection. This will include a facility tour. We will observe study activities like animal dosing and clinical observations. We like to audit the study data and interview the firm's staff. At the end of the day, we usually have a daily wrap-up meeting, summarizing findings, answering questions, and planning the next day's activities. At the end of the inspection, there's a closeout meeting. During GLP inspections, we will cover organization and personnel. We will check responsibilities and qualifications of different personnel like management, study director, quality assurance, and study technicians. For example, in study management, we will check if there is adequate personnel, resources, facility, equipment, and materials available to conduct the study. For study directors, we look to see if the study director is the single point of study control. and if he signed the protocol and any amendments and authorized all deviations. We also do this by reviewing CVs, training files, study protocols, raw data, and ask specific questions, as well as observe their activities. The quality assurance unit function is also covered in the inspection. We will check to see if QA performs adequate inspections to monitor and document study events. Check the protocol amendments, and SOPs were followed by study personnel with deviations being documented and discussed, including an impact evaluation. QAU should be entirely separate from and independent of the personnel engaged in the direction and conduct of the study. The QA records for their findings will not be audited. We will also check the master schedule for at least the past 2 years or from the last inspection while we check the QA function. If studies are accurately documented and if all elements are included. We also may select additional studies to review from the master schedule. For facilities, we need to check if the facility is of adequate size and designed to conduct GLP studies, and if the environmental controls like temperature and humidity are adequate for the conduct of the study. We will cover animal rooms, test article receipt, storage, formulation preparation areas, archives, as well as other areas such as clinical pathology and histology. We need to determine if the equipment is in the right place, if it is appropriately cleaned, sanitized, and good working order, if there is a logbook available for tracking use, scheduled maintenance, and calibration. We determine if SOPs are available for maintenance, cleaning, and calibration, and the calibration and maintenance were performed according to these SOPs and manuals. We also review individual training records, logbooks, SOPs, and user manuals when we look at equipment. Facility operations, we verify if the current version of the SOPs are readily available to study personnel, and that personnel are adequately trained on the study protocol and SOPs for their function. GLP regulations list 12 categories of SOPs, so we need to determine if the firm's SOPs are adequate to ensure quality and integrity of the study data. During inspections, we will collect SOP index and determine what SOPs are available. If we review relevant SOPs related to the audited studies for specific activities and compare the SOPs with the observed activity procedures, make sure that the SOP is the current version. We also check SOP review and revision processes. For reagents and solutions, the compliance program requests that all reagents and solutions in the lab areas are labeled for identity, titer concentration, storage condition, and expiration dates. Deteriorated and expired reagents and solutions should be removed from the lab and should not be used. In the inspection, the storage conditions and labels are all checked, and we will determine the storage condition is correct, and this includes checking the fridge and freezers and all lighting conditions are met. For animal care, we need to determine SOPs for housing, feeding, handling, and care of lab animals are available and being followed. We check the quarantine and pre-treatment animal data, treatment of any diseased animals, and whether they followed the study protocol and SOPs. It was authorized by the study director and documented appropriately. We check if animals are appropriately identified for their treatment assignment as well. During the inspection, we will determine if animal species as well as different studies with the same animal species are housed separately. We will check the animal housing size and condition if it's clean. Animal feed and water also should be analyzed, and the results of those analysis will be reviewed. Bedding and pest control should not interfere with the study. We will determine if the facility has an institutional animal care and use committee, and SOPs related to the IACUC function are available. And sometimes we even like to review IACUC meeting minutes. For the test article and control article, we need to determine that they are adequately characterized for the identity, strength, purity, and composition. Test and control articles are appropriately labeled for identity, lot number, expiration date, and storage condition. The stability is documented that they are stable at the time of administration, and we verify that formulations are stable under the condition of use. Formulation analysis should include uniformity evaluation. Sometimes the test article characterization and dose formulation analysis are performed or provided by the sponsor. If the sponsor did the evaluations, they should provide this information to the study director, and the study director should include this information in the final study report. Protocols will be reviewed as part of the study audit to determine if it is properly prepared and approved by the study director. Many elements should be included in the protocol as indicated in the GLP regulations. Protocol amendments and deviations will be reviewed during the inspection, as well as any corrective actions that may have taken due to them. During GLP inspections, we will check if the study personnel followed protocol and SOPs with their study conduct. We particularly pay attention to animal dosing, observations, sample collection, processing, handling, and storage, test article, formulation handling, and raw data collection. We verify all changes to the protocol and protocol amendments were authorized by the study director prior to being done on study. For records and reports, during the inspection, we will verify the study was conducted following the study protocol and SOPs. All raw data and records should be attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. We verify that data entries are identified by the individual's name and are dated. Data correction should not block these original entries, and there should also include a justification with an initial and date on what date the corrections were made. Computer systems should be validated and have an audit trail to document any changes made, and mortality data will also be reviewed. These are the required elements listed in the GLP regulation for a study report. In a GLP inspection, we check if the study report is signed and dated by the study director and all corrections and supplements are in the form of a report amendment. Contributing scientist reports are available for auditing, and the impact of protocol and SOP deviations are discussed. We make sure that study methods in the study report actually match the methods in the protocol and findings listed in the report and are supported by the raw data. At the end of the inspection, we have a closeout meeting with the firm. At this meeting, we may issue a FDA Form 483 for observations if we find any regulation deviations, or we may discuss items as Zhou previously mentioned. Then we will write an establishment inspection report after this closeout meeting to summarize what we reviewed during the inspection. Now it is time for the challenge questions. Question 1. FDA GLP inspections include A, directed inspections, B, surveillance inspections, or C, both. Take a minute to see what your answers are. The answer is C, both. Challenge question 2. The FDA GLP compliance program is numbered A, 7348.808, B, 7348.807, or C, 7348.808A. Let's take another 30 seconds to get your answers. The answer was A, 7348.808, and it can be found on FDA.gov website. This concludes the GLP compliance program portion of the talk. Next up will be Dr. Lynda Lanning, who will cover the Animal Rural Compliance Program. Thank you for your time today, and I will look forward to seeing any questions you have at the end of this group of presentations.
Hello, and thank you for joining this session today. My name is Lynda Lanning, and I'm a member of the GLP team in CDER's Office of Study Integrity and Surveillance. Just a quick Disclaimer, the opinions and information in this presentation are those of the author and do not necessarily represent the views and/or policies of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. During this presentation, we will briefly describe the animal rule drug development pathway and will cover the components of the Animal Rule Compliance Program and define its goals. As a reminder, the product development under the Animal Rule Guidance for Industry was published in October of 2015, and it provides information and recommendations on drug and biological product development when human efficacy studies are not ethical or feasible. The regulations that set the pathway for approval of these products are commonly referred to as the Animal Rule, and they are 21 CFR 314, 600 through 650 for drugs, and 21 CFR 601, 90 through 95 for biological products. Since 2013, inspection of CDER animal rule studies are conducted as data integrity audits. The compliance program for inspecting labs conducting animal rule specific studies, which is Compliance Program 7348007, was finalized on March the 19th, 2019. You'll note that the Animal Rule Compliance Program shares similar components to the Compliance Program for GLP studies, which is 7348808. And remember that the Animal Rule Compliance Program applies to both GLP and non-GLP compliant animal rule studies. Inspections of animal rule studies are intended to verify the quality and integrity of the study data. By data quality, we mean that the study was conducted in accordance with the protocol, standard operating procedures, and applicable standards of research. And data integrity refers to the raw data and the adequacy of the study documentation to reconstruct the study and verify the results. It's important to remember that the data integrity audits of animal rule studies do not verify compliance with 21 CFR Part 58. A Form FDA 483 may be issued at the closeout meeting of the data integrity audit, and if a response is to be submitted, we request that it be submitted within 15 business days. And remember that the impact of observations and recommendations resulting from the audit are communicated to the relevant review division. Data integrity audits of animal rule studies evaluate the following areas: personnel, quality assurance, facilities, equipment, operations, animal care, test and control articles, challenge agents, the protocol and study conduct, records and reports, and the archives. Those of you that have experienced an animal rule data integrity audit, you know that during the audit, personnel, resources, facilities, equipment, and materials will be verified to determine that they are adequate to perform the study and that personnel are adequately trained to perform their functions. The testing facility should have adequate quality oversight, and the study point of control, often referred to as a study director or principal investigator, should be assigned. Protocols, protocol amendments, and deviations, both protocol and SOP deviations, will be verified for review and approval by the study POC. During the audit, quality assurance activities will be verified to see that inspections have been conducted at adequate frequency to monitor and document study events, that the protocol amendments and SOPs were followed, and that raw data supports the findings presented in the study report, including a discussion of all protocol and SOP deviations. Facilities will be verified to be of adequate size and design with suitable environmental controls to successfully perform the study. Equipment will be verified to be in working condition and appropriately maintained, cleaned, and sanitized with logs for tracking use, maintenance, and calibration. And SOPs for maintenance, cleaning, and calibration should be available and followed. During the audit, we'll check to see that current versions of SOPs are available to study personnel and that they are trained on both the study protocol and applicable SOP. Areas of animal care will be verified, such as the availability of SOPs for housing, feeding, handling, and care of laboratory animals. The facility should have an IACUC and SOPs related to the IACUC function. Animals should be appropriately identified, and staff performing clinical observations should be blinded to treatment assignment. And clear objective criteria should be applied for the use of any clinical interventions and euthanasia of moribund animals. Test and control articles will be verified as adequately characterized for identity, strength, purity, and composition, and that stability is documented. The test and control article labels will be checked, as well as the stability of mixtures under conditions of use. Challenge agent documentation will also be verified. For chemical and biological agents, the identity, purity, and concentration or titer should be documented. Radiological instrumentation should be shown to deliver the desired wavelength and dose. And for nuclear agents, the identity, content, and radioactivity of the specific isotope should be documented. During the audit, the actual dose of challenge agent delivered will be verified against the study protocol. We'll verify that study personnel followed the protocol amendments, and SOPs, and that all changes to the protocol were authorized by the study POC. We'll want to see that criteria for euthanasia of moribund animals are clearly stated in the protocol, and that the criteria were followed during the study. And we'll verify that blinding procedures were maintained throughout the study. If supportive care was administered during the study report will be checked to ensure that the impact of that supportive care was discussed. Raw data will be verified as being attributable and recorded contemporaneously and legibly. We'll verify that computer systems are validated and that they use an audit trail to document changes to the raw data. And records will be verified to accurately report the disposition of each animal. The final study report will be verified to be signed by the study POC, and that any corrections to the final study report are made in the form of a final study report amendment. Signed contributing scientist reports will be verified, and we'll check that the study report, we'll check to see that the study report contains all protocol and SOP deviations and their impact is discussed. The adequacy and access control of the space allocated for the storage and retrieval of raw data and records and specimens will be verified, and will verify that raw data, records, and specimens were retained. Remember that there is no explicit record retention requirement for animal rule studies, as 21 CFR 58-195 does not apply to animal rule specific studies. It's recommended, however, that raw data and records be retained until no longer needed to support a regulatory action. In summary, the FDA expects that animal rule studies will be conducted in a manner to ensure the quality and integrity of the data to support the product's use in humans for the intended indication. So now let's take a few moments and go over some challenge questions. Question 1. Which of the following statements is true regarding the compliance program for animal rule studies? A. Applies only to GLP-compliant animal rule studies. B. Verifies compliance with 21 CFR Part 58. C. Form FDA 483 may be issued. Or D. The impact of observations are not shared with the review division. So let's take a few seconds to choose your answer. Well, I hope everyone had time to choose your answer, and I hope you chose selection C, because that is the correct answer. A Form FDA 483 may be issued at the closeout meeting for a data integrity audit of an animal rule study. Challenge question 2. Which of the following statements is not true regarding data integrity audits of animal rule studies? A. Verify that QA performs inspections to monitor and document study events. B. Verify that study protocols and/or SOPs have criteria for the use of animal care interventions. C. Verify that the challenge agent was adequately documented. And D. Verify that record retention requirements in 21 CFR 58-195 are met. So let's take a few seconds to choose your answer. Okay, I hope everyone had a chance to choose the correct answer, and I hope that you chose D, because that is the correct answer. The record retention requirement in 21 CFR 58-195 does not apply to animal rule studies. However, we do recommend that raw data and records be retained until they are no longer needed to support a regulatory action. So here you can see the documents that were discussed during this session, CP 7348-007, and the Animal Rule Guidance for Industry. I look forward to answering any questions you've submitted. And as a closing thought, I just wanted to encourage you all to remember that the quality and integrity of non-clinical studies submitted under the animal rule have a direct impact on public health as a whole. Thank you. Hello, and thank you for joining this session today. This is Lynda Lanning, and as I mentioned in the previous session, I'm a member of the GLP team in CDER's Office of Study Integrity and Surveillance. A quick disclaimer, the opinions and information in this presentation are those of the author and do not necessarily represent the views and/or policies of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. During this presentation, we're going to cover the purpose of the pathology peer review in non-clinical toxicology studies, questions and answers guidance, provide an overview of this guidance, and also the purpose of the draft guidance, the use of whole slide imaging in non-clinical toxicology studies, questions and answers. As a reminder, guidance for industry documents are intended only to provide clarity to the public regarding existing requirements under the law. FDA guidance documents should be viewed as recommendations unless specific regulatory requirements are cited. Now let's take a look at the Pathology Peer Review in Non-Clinical Toxicology Studies, Questions and Answers, Guidance for Industry. In this guidance, pathology peer review for GLP studies is defined, and the FDA's expectations about conducting and documenting the pathology peer review process are communicated. This guidance was published because pathology peer review is not mentioned in the current version of the GLP regulations, and the FDA had not provided expectations to industry around this study activity when performed in GLP studies. Therefore, there's been inconsistency in industry regarding the pathology peer review process and the documentation of that process. In the past, the FDA has found documentation for reconstruction of the process was often insufficient, and there was generally a lack of transparency in the process. For these reasons, a working group was established, and discussions around this guidance were begun about 9 years ago. This is a cross-center guidance, and therefore the working group included representatives from 7 FDA centers and the Office of Regulatory Affairs. And the working group was led by the OSIS GLP team staff. As you may recall, the draft guidance was published for industry feedback in July of 2019. We received over 350 comments from 25 different entities. The working group assessed each and every submitted comment during the development of the final guidance document. As you know, the final guidance was published for industry in the Federal Register on December 27, 2021. Again, it was issued by 7 FDA centers and the Office of Regulatory Affairs, and it provides the FDA's expectations regarding the conduct and documentation of pathology peer review performed during GLP-compliant toxicology studies. While testing criteria and pathology components may differ for different centers, the FDA's expectations for the conduct and documentation of pathology peer review remains the same. As a reminder, and as covered in Question and Answer 1, this guidance covers GLP-compliant studies and defines pathology peer review as the process by which the diagnoses and interpretations of the study pathologist are subjected to review by one or more peer review pathologists or a pathology working group. And this is for the purpose of ensuring the quality and accuracy of the histopathological diagnoses and interpretations. And it's also important to note what this guidance does not cover. And it does not cover casual discussions, opinion exchange, or mentoring among pathologists. As you read the guidance, you will see that there are several key points. In Question and Answer 3, the guidance acknowledges that pathology peer review can occur either before finalization of the study pathologist report, referred to as contemporaneous, or after finalization of the study pathologist report, referred to as retrospective. Throughout the guidance, you'll note that having a well-documented and transparent pathology peer review process is important. Pathology peer review should be planned, conducted, documented, and reported in accordance with established written procedures that are available to the peer review pathologist. And Question and Answer 8 in the guidance reiterates that the FDA expects that the peer review process is well documented, transparent, and free from undue influence. Test facility management has the ultimate responsibility to implement appropriate measures to ensure the independence of both the study pathologist and the peer review pathologist throughout the process. Now we'll take a look at the use of whole slide imaging in non-clinical toxicology studies, questions and answers, guidance for industry. In this guidance, the FDA's expectations about the management, documentation, and use of whole slide imaging in histopathology assessment and/or in pathology peer review in GLP studies are communicated. This guidance was published because the use of whole slide images in pathology is not mentioned in the current version of the GLP regulations, and the FDA has not provided expectations to industry around this study activity when it performed in GLP studies. And also we note that the interest in the use of whole slide images in pathology and pathology peer review is increasing. For these reasons, a working group was established and discussions around this guidance began back in September of 2020. This is a cross-center guidance, and therefore the working group includes representatives from 7 FDA centers and the Office of Regulatory Affairs, and the working group is led by the OSIS GLP team staff. As you may recall, the draft guidance was published for industry feedback back on April 7th, 2022. Public comments were due June 7th, 2022, and we received over 80 comments from 12 different entities. The working group will assess each submitted comment during development of the final guidance document. In summary, the pathology peer review in non-clinical toxicology studies questions and answers final guidance was published on December 27, 2021, and the use of whole slide imaging in non-clinical toxicology studies questions and answers draft guidance was published on April 7, 2022. Public comments received are currently under review by the working group. Now let's take a few moments and go over some challenge questions. For the first question, which of the following statements is true regarding information in the pathology peer review in GLP studies guidance for industry? Pathology peer review includes opinion exchange between pathologists. Pathology peer review helps ensure the quality and accuracy of histopathology diagnoses and interpretations. Pathology peer review is covered in 21 CFR Part 58. And the guidance was issued by a single FDA center. So let's take a few seconds to select the correct answer. Okay, so I hope everyone selected answer selection B, because that's the correct answer. Pathology peer review helps to ensure the quality and accuracy of histopathology diagnoses and interpretations. Challenge question 2. Which of the following is not true regarding pathology peer review in GLP studies? Pathology peer review can be contemporaneous. Pathology peer review can be retrospective. Pathology peer review does not need to be conducted in accordance with established written procedures. Processes should be in place to ensure that studies are transparent and free from undue influence. So I'll give you a few seconds to select your answer. Okay, I hope everyone chose answer selection C, because that is the correct answer. Pathology peer review does need to be conducted in accordance with established procedures. So here we have links and information about the two documents that we discussed today. The final guidance for industry on pathology peer review and the draft guidance for industry use of whole slide imaging in non-clinical toxicology studies. And I look forward to answering any questions that you may have submitted. Thank you.
Welcome back from the break. We will now begin our first question and answer panel. If you haven't had the chance to answer your question into the Q&A chat pod, please do so now. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. So let's start with our first question for Dr. Kassim. Do other FDA centers, ShaAvhrée, CDRH, CIFSAN, etc., have offices similar to OSIS?
Thank you, Nora. Yes, that is a great question. Given the BIMO program is an agency-wide program, there are programs that each of the centers that have bioresearch monitoring coverage. And so within CDER, the Center for Drugs, we have our own office of Study Integrity and Surveillance, as well as in the Office of Scientific Investigations. And the two offices cover all of CDER's bioresearch monitoring. But in CBER, CDRH, CIFSAN, CTP, and CBM, the bioresearch monitoring are handled by other named offices. Sometimes their Office of Compliance, some are within their Office of Review, but each of the offices with bioresearch monitoring do have a corresponding group or office that or division that handles bioresearch monitoring. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that response. We'll continue with some questions for you, Dr. Kassim. Next question is, what is the timeline to receive the EIR for the conducted inspection? Is it required to communicate with FDA if an EIR is not received after a long duration?
Excellent. Thank you for that question. So when the EIR is completed, which means that everything is closed out, our process is to send it out to the inspected entity. Now, so that usually happens within a few months of the completion of the inspection whole case, not necessarily the inspection itself, because it takes a while to then evaluate and wrap up the whole case around the inspection. Usually it's not required to communicate with FDA. However, if you do not receive your EIR after 6 months or so, it doesn't hurt to request it to ensure that you're going to get that copy.
All right, thank you for that response. One more question for you. When will ICH M10 be adapted by FDA?
That's a really good question too, and something that I'd like to know the answer to. So as of right now, the ICH group is finalizing the M10 revision, or the final draft, and that should be coming out from ICH relatively soon. Once that is completed, then FDA will do its internal clearance process to then publish it as a draft, or as a final guidance from FDA. So Exactly the timing is not clear, but I think we're closer than we have been, and hopefully within at least the next year we'll see something.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Now we have some questions that came in for Dr. Tahseen Mirza. First question, based on slide 15 of your presentation, are we to understand that in vitro bioequivalence is out of the scope of FDA's compliance programs?
Yes, Nora, thank you for that question. In vitro studies are inspected by OSIS. Those in vitro studies that are under the purview of OSIS are usually the BABE studies. For example, the in vitro tests for dissolution testing or plume geometry, these kind of in vitro tests, if performed under BABE program, are inspected or by OSIS, and it's under the purview of OSIS. Another example of in vitro tests that are that can be inspected are those under PSGs, that is the product specific guidance for BABE. These are performed quite routinely actually by OSIS.
All right, thank you for that information. We have another question for you, Dr. Mirza. Are the evaluations limited to BABE studies only? So does that mean non-BABE clinical studies are exempt?
Thanks. Exempt is not the right question. We are in this workshop talking about those studies that are conducted under the purview of OSIS. So OSIS is responsible for BABE, analytical and clinical portion of the studies. Then we are also responsible for the animal rule, as you have heard, and also GLP. The other clinical studies are performed or audited by Office of Regulatory Affairs, but our purview is for specifically for BABE, GLP, and animal rule studies. So no, not exempted, but they are performed by other offices.
All right, thank you so much for that information. Now we'll move on to next question. This is for Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen, can no observed effect level, or NOAEL, from a non-GLP toxicology study support the calculation of starting dose for a phase 1 clinical trial?
Thank you, Nora. Yes, I will answer this question. So for the phase 1 clinical trial, usually this is the first in human trial. So we pay special attention to the safety, human subject safety, to this kind of studies, clinical trials. So to support the this kind of clinical studies, non-clinical studies for novel dose have to be conducted following FDA GLP regulations. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you for that information. Another question for you, Dr. Chen. How many inspections per year are typically conducted for animal rule studies?
Usually, I remember we have about 5 to 6 animal rule studies every year. But all these inspection, animal rule study inspections, about 5 to 6 inspections every year. All these inspections are requested by CEDAR review divisions. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Another question for you. Are GLP inspections currently pre-announced?
Yes, right now, most GLP studies, GLP inspections conducted are pre-announced because of the COVID-19 pandemic situations. But generally, the regulations do not require FDA to pre-announce its inspections. So we do not pre-announce directed or routine surveillance inspections. Right now, it's a specific time, special time for COVID-19 pandemic situation. So we do pre-announcement for GLP inspections. But in the future, as the pandemic get eased, we will not do the pre-announcement. Thank you.
I see. Thank you for sharing that. All right, so now we'll move on to some more questions submitted. This is specifically for Erin McDowell. Erin, is it acceptable for the tissue trimmers to have a guide taped to their workstation explaining how each tissue is trimmed?
Hi, thank you for the question. It is acceptable for the tissue trimmers to have a guide on how to trim the tissues. They should also have access to what is currently in the SOP and like processes describing like how to do things, whether that be on a computer or printed out. As long as the area stays clean and they can clean it, and it's the current process, should be fine.
All right, thank you for answering that. Erin, we have another question for you. So each facility runs many studies. When auditing a site, do you randomly choose a study?
When we're out doing surveillance inspection assignments and we review the master schedule, sometimes we will randomly choose a study to review on site off the master schedule. That is not pre-planned before we get to the site.
I see. Thank you for that information. All right, Erin, one more question for you. Are routine GLP inspections currently pre-announced? Oh, sorry, I guess that was already covered. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Sorry, yes, Joe just answered that one.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. All right, so now we'll move on to some questions for Dr. Lynda Lanning. Dr. Lanning, are all protocol and SOP deviations discussed in the study report, or only ones that affect the quality and integrity of the data?
That's a great question. So for animal rule studies, we do, according to the compliance program, we do verify that the final study report lists all protocol and SOP deviations. And also, it's important that the impact of those discussions or those deviations are discussed in the final study report by the study director. Thank you.
Okay. Can you give an example of when animal rule studies will be needed?
Sure. So that's actually stated in the animal rule, and it's anytime that a human efficacy studies are not able to be conducted because it would be unethical or not feasible to do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Now we'll go back to some more questions for Dr. Chen. These questions that were submitted that came in. Does FDA accept studies performed by GLP laboratories that are located in Asian Pacific region countries?
Hi, the answer is yes. Every month or every week, we receive a lot of studies, GLP studies from the Asian Pacific countries, from China, from Taiwan, Korea, Japan. We receive a lot of studies. Yes, Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Another question for you, Dr. Chen. How many staff make up the CEDAR OSIS GLP team?
We right now we have 4 people in my team to do GLP inspections. We just recruited 1 new person, and so we have a lot of workload, a lot of inspections, reviews. We also get help from BE teams. BE reviewers help us for GLP inspections, specifically for the bioanalytical portion of the GLP studies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that information. Another question for you, Dr. Chen. In regard to GLP report amendments, is a report amendment required for a translation report, such as English, like an English translation report, and or report formatting, such as an incorrect hyperlink?
This question is related to the report translation, and I will cover this in tomorrow's case study. I just want to be brief that English translation should be the truthful representation of the original document. So the report amendment should be translated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your responses. All right, we will move on to our next question. I guess this could be for Dr. Chen as well. Sorry. Let me just get to our questions here. Dr. Chen, I guess who pays for the FDA GLP inspections?
This is a good question, easy question. FDA budget pays for all GLP inspections, like a flight, like a hotel, and so the inspected facilities, they don't have to pay anything. I know some other countries, the facility has to pay the inspectors travel and hotel. Yes, FDA cover everything. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your responses. Now we'll go on to some questions for Erin. Erin, what SOPs are required?
Hi, thank you for that. The SOPs are actually listed in the regulation 21 CFR 58.81B. Look them up. There's 12 of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll ask you one more question. What is the difference between a discussion item and an observation on a Form 483?
Discussion items are usually findings that might be minor or a one-time occurrence that has no impact really on the operations, study conduct, or data integrity. Observations would be, more significant and violations of the regulation.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go back to some more questions that came in for Dr. Zhou, Dr. Zhou Chen. Dr. Chen, what studies or are studies conducted under GLP issued by China NMPA considered non-GLP?
Hi, I think this is a very good question. So we have a lot of situations related to this question. And China is not a OECD member country. So studies from China conducted in compliance with their own country's GRP or even OECD GRP should not be accepted for review as a GRP studies in FDA. So we receive a lot of studies from China every month. So also we perform inspections in China, like for me myself, from 2013, every year before the pandemic, and even now we do we cannot go to China for inspections, but we have the report record review performed by OSIS reviewers. So the Chinese large Chinese CROs, they know that studies, GRP studies for FDA submissions, they have to follow the FDA GRP regulations. So if they performed only the Chinese GRP regulations, it's not adequate. You know, we cannot accept these studies to support the clinical trial. And yeah, and right now, still, I know I just mentioned the large CROs in China, they know have this expectation, but some new CROs in China, sometimes they don't know this, so they still submit GRP studies with following Chinese GRP regulations. So this is not acceptable. You know, we can take this as sometimes based on the quality of the study report, we may take it as the reference documents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so another question for you is, how do you handle pivotal tox studies conducted in China GLP labs?
As I mentioned, we have a lot of studies from China, and specifically some CROs, they perform more studies than the CROs in the United States. And they basically, these kind of studies, they have to follow the US FDA GRP regulations. And also we're right now we are routinely perform GRP inspections or remote record reviews for these facilities to ensure the quality and integrity of these pivotal GRP studies. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your response. Now we have a question back for Dr. Kassim. Does FDA support digitization of paper records as certified copies for archival?
Thank you, Nora. Yes, that's a good question too. As allowed under Part 11, there is the ability to digitize paper records into electronic format. It's just important that the process to do so is certified such that the electronic copy is a true copy of everything that's contained in the paper version.
Okay, thank you. We think we might have time for one more question. This one looks like it's for you, Dr. Kassim, as well. Are EIRs from long ago, say 2009, still available for request?
So generally, for inspections that are not significant, the expiration date is 10 years. So 2009 may be a little too long. It doesn't hurt to ask, but there is a potential that it would have been expired by now.
All right, thank you so much for that response. Looks like that is all the questions we might have time for. Thank you again to all our presenters for all the excellent information.